There comes a moment when you no longer ask, when will it happen, but instead declare, it has already happened. That is the shift. And once you step into it, everything will change. You see, the overflow you desire, the financial freedom, the loving relationship, the unshakable peace, is not coming to you. It is already here. It has always been here. But it is only revealed when you begin to see differently. You have been trained to think that life responds to effort, to time, to hustle, but life responds to states of consciousness. And the state you dwell in, the inner story you rehearse, is the blueprint of your future. This is the truth most never understand. You do not receive what you want. You receive who you are being. So let me ask you, who are you being right now? Are you being the one who lacks, who waits, who doubts? Or are you being the one who already has, already is, already knows? The overflow is not a reward for your struggle. It is the natural outcome of alignment. When you align your inner world with the end you desire, the outer world must echo it. It has no choice. This shift is not outside of you. It begins in your imagination. There you feel what it would be like if your desire were already fulfilled. You walk in that feeling. You breathe in that feeling. You live in that feeling. And as you persist, the old world falls away. Not because you fought it, but because you no longer matched it. The world changes when you change states, not when you plead, not when you strive, but when you assume the overflow as a fact before the senses confirm it. To shift is to say, I remember who I am. To shift is to say, I am the one who creates. To shift is to realize that the source lives in you, moves through you, speaks as you. And from that state, you prepare. You don't beg. You don't chase. You prepare. Prepare your mind, prepare your space, prepare your spirit, not in desperation, but in certainty. Just as a pregnant mother prepares the nursery not hoping but knowing the child is coming, so too must you prepare for overflow. The shift is simple, but you must make it real. You must feel it real. You must dare to believe before there is proof, because once you do, everything changes. The flow becomes unstoppable. The doors you once knocked on swing open. The people you once chased now seek you. The life you once only imagined becomes the life you wake up in. You have shifted. And now, prepare for overflow. This idea may seem strange at first because we've been conditioned to believe that we must chase, strive, and prove ourselves worthy of abundance. But the truth is this: everything you seek, the wealth, the love, the peace, the success, already exists. It is not somewhere out there, locked away in the future. It is here, now, in a dimension of consciousness that you must enter, not achieve. There is no need to earn what is already yours by right of awareness. You don't have to become more, do more, or have more effort before the overflow arrives. It is not about time. It is not about deserving. It is about alignment. And alignment is not an action, it is a state. You see, this world responds not to your desires, but to your assumptions. The secret is not in trying harder, but in dwelling deeper. Deeper in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Deeper in the belief that what you long for is not only possible, but already here, already yours, already done. Most people wait to see evidence before they believe. But that is the backward path. That is the road of delay. The truth is, you must believe and then you will see. Not because belief magically creates something new, but because belief shifts your awareness to the version of reality where it is already true. Think of reality like a radio dial. All frequencies already exist: music, news, silence, noise. They are all broadcasting now, but you only hear what you tune into. The same is true of overflow. It exists now. It has always existed. You've simply been tuned to a different station. One of lack, of waiting, of someday. But the moment you shift your state, not through force, but through assumption, everything begins to move. Not because the world changes, but because your position within it changes. You don't climb the mountain of success. You relocate within consciousness. You ascend inwardly. You close your eyes and feel what it would be like if it were already true. You imagine how it would feel to live in the overflow, to no longer hope, but to know, to no longer strive, but to receive. And the moment you do this, you send a new signal to life. You become magnetic, not because you're doing more, but because you are being differently. You become one with the thing you once pursued. And when there is no more distance between you and it, when you feel it, live it, breathe it, it appears. The overflow was never running from you. It was never hiding. It was always waiting for you to rise into the version of yourself who could hold it, not by effort, but by embodiment. Not by pleading, but by believing. So stop waiting. Stop rehearsing lack. Stop assuming that tomorrow holds what you can claim today. The door is already open. The banquet is already set. The invitation has already been sent. All that remains is for you to step in. The overflow is not late. It is not delayed. The shift begins with assumption, not action. This is a truth that unravels the illusion of struggle. So many spend their lives chasing, striving, exhausting themselves in pursuit of a better life. They believe that more effort will unlock the doors of abundance. But effort alone, without alignment, is motion without meaning. It is noise without sound. Real change begins not in what you do, but in what you believe to be true. Assumption is the seed of all creation. It is the silent power behind every result. When you assume something with conviction, truly accept it as your internal reality, the outer world is compelled to mirror it. You do not need to fight for overflow. You do not need to beg the universe, chase opportunities, or push harder. The truth is simpler, quieter, more powerful. You need only assume the state where overflow is already yours. Assumption is not wishful thinking. It is not positive thinking dressed in hopeful disguise. Assumption is the deep inner knowing that what you desire is already yours in the unseen. It is a quiet confidence that doesn't seek proof, because it is the proof. You are not here to convince the world, you are here to convince yourself. And when that inner shift happens, when the assumption becomes so real to you that it becomes your natural state of being, the outer world must conform. It has no choice. You might ask, but shouldn't I be doing something? Shouldn't I take steps toward my goal? And the answer is yes, but only after the inner shift. Action without the foundation of assumption is often frantic, disconnected, and ineffective. But when your actions rise from a place of inner knowing, they are effortless, aligned, and divinely timed. This is the reason many fail to see results despite hard work. They take action while still doubting, still fearing, still assuming lack. And so their actions are poisoned with resistance. The outer world reflects not their actions, but the energy behind those actions. Assumption rewrites your identity. When you assume abundance, you begin to walk differently, speak differently, expect differently. And life responds. People treat you according to how you see yourself. Opportunities appear to match your internal vision. This is the unseen law that governs all things. Reality flows from the invisible to the visible, from the assumed to the actual, from the inner to the outer. You must be bold enough to live from the unseen, bold enough to feel wealthy before you have the money, bold enough to feel loved before anyone calls, bold enough to feel successful when nothing yet confirms it, because this is the path of the Creator, not the victim, the one who knows. My world is not happening to me. It is coming from me. So stop measuring your progress by what your eyes can see. Begin to measure it by how real the assumption has become within you. When the feeling is natural, when the assumption is automatic, when you no longer question whether it's coming, that is the shift. That is when you move not by force but by faith. And that is when the world moves with you. Imagination is the womb of overflow. It is the sacred space where all things are conceived before they are born into form. Nothing you experience in the outer world comes without first being imagined. The mind is not simply a place for thought, it is the origin of reality. Every great life, every transformation, every miracle began first in the unseen, in the quiet chambers of imagination. This is not fantasy or daydream. Imagination is the creative act. It is a divine power within you that shapes the world you live in. You are not observing reality, you are generating it. Your thoughts, your visions, your inner pictures, they are not passive, they are the blueprint, and life is following their instructions. What you imagine as true and persist in imagining becomes your lived experience. The outer world is delayed reflection. It is the mirror that takes its shape from your inner world. When you sit in stillness and imagine wealth, love, peace, success, and you do so not as a hope, but as a felt reality, you awaken a process. You set a law in motion. Life begins reshaping itself to reflect your internal state. But you must understand this. Imagination must be vivid, alive, and consistent. It is not enough to imagine once and return to doubt. You must dwell in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. You must live from it. Your imagination must become more real to you than the facts around you. That is the secret of creation. When you feel overflow within, when you see yourself walking in abundance, acting from abundance, giving generously, living freely, the world takes notice. You will be surprised how circumstances bend, people shift, resources appear, doors open, not because of effort, but because of alignment. The world is always echoing the dominant feeling you carry. This is why it is said that the kingdom is within. You do not chase overflow. You conceive it in imagination and carry it as real. That inner conception is your seed. And just like a seed planted in soil, it begins to grow. Unseen at first, but eventually breaking through into physical reality. Most people imagine lack more often than overflow. They rehearse fear. They imagine rejection, loss, failure, and then a surprise when life delivers it. But life is not personal. It is principle. It gives back what you give it in thought and feeling. So if you want overflow, begin within. See it clearly. Feel it deeply. Make it so real that it lives in you as a memory from the future. Speak as one who has it. Move as one who owns it. Think as one who embodies it. You do not need to beg for blessings when you've already given birth to them in imagination. Hold that inner picture, guard it, nurture it, refuse to trade it for doubt, and when you do, the outer world will begin to change. Imagination is not idle, it is not fiction. It is the most powerful tool you possess. It is the beginning of every overflow, the origin of every miracle, and the silent architect of your destiny. What you imagine, you become. And what you become, the world must reflect. The old self must die for the new world to rise. This is not a poetic phrase, it is a spiritual law. You cannot carry the identity of who you were into the life that is calling you. The version of you that was attached to struggle, to fear, to lack, to waiting, that self cannot enter the state of overflow. It must be released. It must be buried. Every transformation requires a death, not of the body, but of the belief system. The stories you've told yourself about why things don't work, why you aren't enough, why life is hard, those stories have built a prison around your potential. And if you wish to rise into abundance, into peace, into power, you must let the old storyteller fade away. You cannot keep saying, I always struggle, and expect ease. You cannot keep affirming, nothing ever works out for me, and expect doors to open. These are not just words. They are identities. And identities have energy. They pull experiences to match them. So long as you continue to see yourself as the one who lacks, the world will reflect lack. It has to. The universe does not respond to what you say with your mouth. It responds to what you believe in your heart. If you believe you are the struggler, the one who barely gets by, then even if opportunities arrive, they will slip through your fingers. Because your inner self-image won't allow them to stay. To shift is not to do more, it is to become more. To let go of the version of you that was shaped by survival, by wounds, by disappointment. You must allow that self to die. Not with sadness, but with honor, because it brought you here. But now it can go. You must begin to see yourself as someone new, as someone worthy, whole, complete. You must wear the garments of abundance in the silence of your imagination. Long before anyone else can see it, you must walk as the person you are becoming, not the person you were. There is no bridge between the old self and the new world. You must leap. And yes, the leap feels like death. The death of comfort, the death of familiar pain, the death of control. But what waits on the other side is resurrection. You were never meant to live small. You were never meant to stay in cycles of lack. But the shift won't happen while you hold tightly to old identities. You must say goodbye to the victim, the beggar, the one who is waiting for permission. You must lay that self to rest, and in its place rise. Rise into the self who commands the room with quiet confidence. Rise into the one who expects miracles, not because they are entitled, but because they are aligned. Rise into the one who no longer seeks but is. The new world is already here, but only the new you can walk in it. So bury the doubt, the fear, the almost, and embody the I am. The death of the old self is not the end. It is the beginning of everything real, everything abundant, everything true. Let it go and rise. You are the cause, not the effect. This is the most liberating truth you will ever hear, and perhaps the most challenging to accept. For as long as you believe that life is happening to you, you will remain bound to reaction. You will live as a passenger, not a creator. But the moment you realize that everything around you, the people, the opportunities, the delays, the abundance or the lack, is a mirror of your inner state, you reclaim your power. Your thoughts are not harmless. Your inner conversations are not random. Every sentence you rehearse in the silence of your mind is an instruction to life. Every assumption you persist in is a blueprint for what must appear. This is not theory, it is law. You have been taught to respond to conditions, to wait for better circumstances to feel better, to change jobs, relationships, or locations, hoping something out there will shift what's going on inside. But it never lasts, because the outer is only echoing the inner. The world cannot give you what you have not first accepted within yourself. If your inner dialogue is filled with fear, life will give you reasons to be afraid. If you constantly tell yourself, nothing ever works out for me, then even good opportunities will find a way to collapse, because your belief system will sabotage them. Not consciously, but consistently. You must become aware of the stories you're telling. You must start listening to the conversations you're having in your own mind, not the ones with others, but the ones you have when you're alone. Those are the seeds of your reality. Those are the causes. What happens outside is just the fruit. The world is not against you. It is not unfair. It is simply reflective. Like a mirror, it shows you not what you want, but what you are being. If you want to change what the mirror reflects, you don't try to adjust the mirror, you adjust yourself. This means you must stop blaming conditions. Stop pointing to your past, your upbringing, the economy, or other people as the reasons why you are stuck. As long as you give them power, you stay powerless. But the moment you take full responsibility for your inner state, everything changes. You do not have to control the world. You only need to master your self-perception. Shift your inner identity from victim to victor, from lack to abundance, from waiting to receiving. Begin to speak to yourself in the language of overflow. Begin to imagine life working for you. Persist in that feeling, even when nothing around you has changed. And then it will. Reality bends to sustained inner conviction. This is not about pretending. It's about assuming, quietly, persistently, faithfully, until the assumption becomes your natural way of being. Once it does, life reorganizes around you. You are the cause, not the effect. And when you live from this truth, you no longer need to chase anything. You no longer need to fix everything. You simply shift within, and the world mirrors the shift. Overflow comes to the one who dwells, not visits. You cannot flirt with abundance and expect it to take root in your life. You cannot entertain the feeling of I have for a few moments in the morning, only to return to worry, doubt, and lack for the rest of the day, and then wonder why nothing changes. The law of creation responds not to brief glimpses, but to sustained dwelling. It responds to the state you live in, not the one you temporarily visit. To dwell in a state means to abide in it, to make it your home, your foundation, your identity. You no longer merely affirm abundance, you embody it. You no longer try to feel wealthy, you wake up with the quiet inner knowing that it is already yours, not because you can see the evidence, but because you have assumed the feeling as fact. This is the great difference between wishing and knowing. Wishing still carries the scent of doubt. Wishing says, maybe one day, but knowing says, it is already mine. And it is this knowing, this quiet certainty, that shifts the entire structure of your reality. When you dwell in overflow, you think from the end, not toward it. You do not hope for things to improve. You move through life as if they already have. You make decisions from your desired future, not your current limitations. You speak differently, you walk differently. You become the version of yourself who already has what they once sought. This is not about delusion. It is about divine alignment. You are aligning your inner state with the version of reality where your desire is fulfilled. And because all possibilities exist now, the one you align with must take form. It is law. But here is the part most overlooked. This state must become natural to you. It must become familiar. As long as it feels foreign, you will snap back to the old self. That is why persistence matters. Not in effort, but in feeling. You must return again and again to the state of the wish fulfilled, until it becomes the only truth you accept. And once it becomes natural, once you no longer need to convince yourself, it manifests effortlessly, not because you forced it, but because you became a match to it. Life had no choice but to reflect your dwelling place. This is why some people seem to attract abundance with ease, not because they are lucky, but because they have made abundance their home. Even when they had little, they felt like they had much. Even when nothing in the world looked different, their inner world was already overflowing. And eventually the outer world caught up. You must choose your dwelling place wisely. You cannot live in fear and expect peace. You cannot dwell in lack and expect overflow. The law is simple. Whatever you occupy inwardly, you create outwardly. So stop visiting abundance like a tourist. Move in, live there, think from there, act from there, give from there, speak from there. There, in the end, the truth is simple yet profound. Everything you desire is already here, waiting for you to align with it. Overflow is not something to chase, it is something to become. The shift begins within you, not in the world outside. When you surrender the old self, when you dwell in the state of I have, and when you boldly assume your desire as already fulfilled, life mirrors your inner transformation. You are the cause, you are the creator, and the moment you remember that, everything begins to change. Prepare for overflow, not with fear, not with striving, but with certainty, with peace, and with the power of your imagination. Thank you for listening. May you rise, may you line, and may your life overflow with all that is already yours. When life becomes unbearable, when the storms rage and everything outside of you seems to crumble, this is the moment many search frantically for help. They reach outward, grasping for hands, for signs, for something, anything to pull them from the chaos. But the greatest secret is this: the very thing you are searching for has never been outside of you. The presence you seek, the strength you long for, the peace you crave, it is all within. You see, there is a divine intelligence that lives in you, closer than your breath, nearer than your own hands and feet. It does not come when you cry out loud to the world. It responds when you remember who you are. In the silence of your soul, in the stillness where no one else can enter, you meet the true source of power. Not a distant deity, not a far-off force, but the infinite and creative power of your own inner being. In hard times, the temptation is always to run, to distract yourself, to numb yourself, to beg others to fix what you feel is broken. But every time you look outward for salvation, you deny your own divinity. You silence the quiet voice that already knows the way. And yet it waits. It waits for you to turn inward and see. This is not about belief in some abstract concept. It is not about religion or ritual. It is about direct experience. There is a still small voice inside of you, a presence that has never abandoned you, even when the world did. It is not loud because it does not need to shout. It whispers because it knows that truth does not need to be proven. It simply is. When everything falls apart, your mind may race, your emotions may scream, but beneath it all there is a calm observer, unchanging, unmoved, eternal. That is the divine within you. And when you recognize it, something shifts. The chaos doesn't vanish, but you stop being ruled by it. You become the eye of the storm. You find a strength that doesn't rely on external conditions. Imagination is the doorway to this power. You are not merely a body reacting to the world. You are consciousness itself, and you have the ability to create. The moment you close your eyes and feel what you wish to feel, you are stepping into communion with the divine. In your darkest hour, imagine yourself safe, whole, healed. Not as a fantasy, but as a reality already present in a higher dimension of yourself. When you persist in that feeling, the outer world will have no choice but to mirror it. It is easy to say I have faith when life is easy, but real knowing, the kind that moves mountains, is born in adversity. In hard times, you are not being punished. You are being called inward. You are being invited to remember your source. You are not being broken. You are being redirected to your true power. And that power does not live in the opinions of others, in your bank account, or in your circumstances. It lives in the seat of your awareness. To seek God in hard times is to stop looking out the window and start looking in the mirror. Not at your face, but at the soul behind your eyes. When you do, you realize that you are not alone, and you never were. You are one with the divine life that creates worlds. And from that place, all things are possible. So don't run, be still, turn inward, and remember who you are. That's where the healing begins. There is a vast difference between asking and assuming. One pleads from a place of lack, the other declares from a place of knowing. In difficult times, many fall to their knees, not in reverence, but in desperation, begging, hoping, fearing. They whisper prayers that come from doubt, not belief. But the truth is, the divine does not respond to panic. It responds to presence. You must not beg as if God is far away. You must assume the feeling that God is already here. Because God is already here, there is no separation. The very breath moving through you, the stillness beneath your thoughts, the awareness watching your fears, that is the presence of the divine. You do not need to earn it, chase it, or convince it to stay. You only need to feel it as if it were undeniable. This is the secret. This is the way. Assumption is not pretending. It is not about tricking yourself or faking belief. It is about stepping into a new reality internally, even before you see the evidence externally. It is about choosing to dwell in the awareness of God's presence, regardless of how loud the storm may seem around you. In your imagination, you must learn to feel the nearness of that presence, like a warm light, like a comforting embrace, like the steady ground beneath your feet. This feeling, this assumption, is more powerful than any spoken word. Words spoken without feeling are empty, but a quiet assumption made with conviction moves the unseen forces of life. When you assume that the divine is already with you, guiding you, loving you, and upholding you, something deep within begins to shift. Your mind may not understand it at first. Your senses may still scream of problems and pain, but your inner world begins to align with a higher truth, that you are never alone, and that what you seek is already within you. This is not wishful thinking. This is spiritual law. The outer world is only a reflection of the inner state. If you continue to beg, you reinforce the belief that God is absent. But when you assume the presence, you begin to create the conditions for miracles. Your thoughts change, your energy changes, you become receptive, calm and open. You begin to walk through life not as a victim of fate, but as a companion of the end. Feel it now. Feel as though you are already held in divine arms. Speak not as one asking for rescue, but as one who knows the rescue has already come. How would you speak if you knew you were loved beyond comprehension? How would you walk if you knew that every step was guided, every breath was sacred? That is how you must live. Not later, not when things improve, but now. Every time doubt arises, return to the feeling. Every time fear whispers lies, return to the feeling. Make it your dwelling place, make it your home. Not just in moments of meditation, but in the ordinary moments. While you wash dishes, while you walk, while you sit in silence. Assume it then. Assume it always. This is how you train your mind to see what is real and release what is false. God is not a force that comes and goes. God is the very fabric of your being. And when you assume that truth, when you feel it in your heart and carry it in your soul, you will find that everything you need begins to unfold. Not because you begged for it, but because you knew it was already yours. So stop waiting, stop pleading, begin to assume, begin to feel, begin to know. The presence is not coming, it is already here. All you must do is remember. There is an invisible law that governs your relationship with the divine. A law that does not respond to chaos, panic, or fear, but to the quiet stability of your inner state. Many cry out in pain, asking why their prayers go unanswered, why heaven seems silent. But they do not realize that it is not enough to ask for guidance. You must align with it, and that happens through your state of being. Your state is not what you say, or even what you think in fleeting moments. Your state is the deep emotional atmosphere you carry, your inner posture toward life. If you are constantly filled with worry, doubt, and turmoil, you are tuned to a frequency that cannot pick up the wisdom already surrounding you. That when you choose to rest in peace, even when the world gives you every reason to fall apart, that is when the voice of God becomes clear. This is not about pretending that pain doesn't exist. It's about refusing to be ruled by it. Even in sorrow, you can align with faith. Even in grief, you can choose trust. These are not passive states. They are powerful, deliberate acts of surrender. And when you hold them, something sacred begins to move through you. The answers you seek are not somewhere far away. They are already here, encoded in the silence, hidden in the now. But you must be still enough to hear them. Imagine trying to hear a whisper in the middle of a thunderstorm. That's what it's like when your soul is noisy with fear. The whisper is still there. It hasn't stopped. It's just drowned out by the noise of your own resistance. But when you quiet that storm, through breath, through stillness, through letting go of the need to control, you become receptive. You become soft enough to be led. You become a magnet for divine guidance. This is why people who have walked through suffering with grace often seem wiser, more radiant, more in tune. They did not avoid pain. They learned how to meet it without collapsing into it. They found peace not in the absence of struggle, but in the presence of surrender. And from that place clarity came. The path revealed itself, the right words, the right people, the right doors. They all appeared, not through striving, but through stillness. You must become the answer before the answer arrives. You must feel calm before the way becomes clear. You must embody faith before you see the outcome. This is the mystery, the paradox, the divine irony. The more you chase the solution from a state of fear, the further it seems. But the moment you rest in trust, the solution rises to meet you. You are always in communion with the divine, whether you recognize it or not. But it is only when you consciously choose to dwell in love, in faith, in peace, that this communion becomes powerful. You don't have to know how it will all work out. You only have to hold the vibration of trust long enough for life to match it. So when you are lost, do not panic. Go within. Breathe. Return to the stillness. Say silently to yourself, I am safe. I am guided. I am held. And feel it not as wishful thinking, but as truth. Do this not once, but repeatedly, until it becomes your foundation. Guidance does not shout, it whispers. It comes in dreams, in sudden knowing, in gentle nudges. And the more peaceful you are, the more clearly you will hear. Your state of being is your signal to the universe. Send out faith. send out peace, and watch what returns. Silence is not the absence of sound, it is the absence of resistance. In this sacred stillness, when the mind is no longer at war with the present moment, the truth that was always waiting begins to rise. In times of hardship, when the walls seem to close in and the future feels uncertain, the impulse is to do more, think more, struggle more, but that very impulse is what clouds the revelation. You do not find answers in the noise, you find them in the stillness behind the noise. You must learn to value silence, not as an escape from your problems, but as a return to the presence, where problems lose their power. This silence is not found in the world, but within you. It is a state of awareness where the ego has no voice and fear has no hold. When you withdraw from the frantic urge to fix, to panic, to beg for immediate resolution, you create space for clarity. That space is the doorway to revelation. Many search for signs, for voices, for something external to show them what to do next. But the answers do not come from out there. The answers are always whispered from within. And it is only when you are quiet enough to listen that they become audible. The truth never shouts. It waits for you to lower your defenses, soften your heart, and open yourself like a child. Receptive, humble, ready. Stillness is the holy ground where God speaks, not in thunder, not in fire, but in a gentle knowing that comes without effort. In silence, the false self falls away. The identity built on fear, on control, on survival begins to dissolve. What remains is the real you, the one who has always been connected to the divine. And from that awareness, guidance flows naturally, not as a booming voice from the sky, but as an inner yes, an unshakable peace, a sudden realization that feels both surprising and familiar. To cultivate silence is to create a sanctuary in your being, a place untouched by the chaos of the world. And the more time you spend there, the more attuned you become to that subtle language of the spirit. You begin to notice patterns, feel inspired nudges, perceive synchronicities. What once felt impossible now feels inevitable, not because the world changed, but because your awareness did. There is nothing passive about silence. It is one of the most powerful states you can enter. It requires faith to be still when everything in you wants to act. It requires trust to wait when your mind demands urgency. But in this waiting, in this stillness, something eternal begins to move. You are not lost. You are not without help. You are simply distracted by the volume of your fear. Lower it. Let the thoughts pass like clouds. Let the emotions rise and fall like waves. And beneath all of it, you will discover the ground of being, the quiet, unshakable presence that is always guiding you, always holding you, always knowing the way forward. If you don't know what to do, don't do anything. Sit in the silence. Breathe. Trust that what you need will rise in its own perfect time. The urge to force an answer is the very thing that delays it. Let go. Fall into the stillness. Listen not with your ears, but with your spirit. And you will know. Silence is not empty. It is full of revelation. It is the sacred space where divine wisdom is remembered, not learned. Go there often, especially when life feels too loud, for in the quiet you will remember what you forgot, that you are never alone, never without guidance, and always one breath away from clarity. Imagination is not a childish game or idle daydream. It is the sacred language of the divine. Through it, you speak to the unseen, you commune with the infinite, and you shape the unseen substance of life into visible form. In times of despair or uncertainty, most people speak their fears, affirm their worries, and visualize their failures. They do this without realizing that the very act of imagining is a spiritual conversation, a declaration of faith in what is to come. And so, what they dread appears, not because they are being punished, but because they have unknowingly used the most powerful gift within them in the wrong direction. To seek God in hard times is not to cry out in helplessness, but to close your eyes and see yourself already delivered, already free, already whole. It is to lift your consciousness above the facts of the moment and dwell in the realm of divine possibility. Imagination is not pretending. It is selecting a higher truth and giving it life through feeling. You are not faking it. You are faithfully aligning with the reality that is more true than what your senses show. What you see in your mind's eye with conviction, you shall one day see with your natural eye. This is the mystery of all transformation. You do not wait for things to change to feel safe. You feel safe and things begin to change. You do not wait for the miracle to arrive. You embody it internally, and it begins to shape the external world around you. Can you sit still? Let it become still. Any pray that few imagine. And without imagination, prayer becomes empty words. You may ask God to make a way, but if you continue to picture yourself trapped, anxious, or lacking, you are working against the very thing you desire. Imagination must match intention. You must see it before you can receive it. When you visualize yourself safe, strong, uplifted, you are not lying to yourself. You are remembering who you truly are. You are reuniting with the divine blueprint that already exists in a higher realm. Your imagination is the bridge between this world and that one. And when you cross it not once but repeatedly, faithfully, emotionally, you bring that higher truth into form. Imagination must be accompanied by feeling. It is not enough to see the picture, you must feel the reality of it. Feel the warmth of safety, the lightness of peace, the confidence of being divinely supported. Let it flood your body. Change your breath. Alter your posture. In doing so, you instruct your subconscious mind, and the subconscious always obeys the feeling it is given. In hard times, this becomes your lifeline. When everything around you says it's over, when circumstances try to convince you that you are forgotten, this is when you close your eyes and go within. See yourself rising. See yourself smiling again. See the doors opening, the burden lifting, the light returning, and hold that vision with tenderness and certainty. Not just once, but over and over, until it feels more real than what you see around you. This is not delusion. This is divine communication. The divine does not speak through fear. It does not speak through despair. It speaks through inner vision, through the language of possibility, through the images you dare to hold in faith. If you wish to commune with God, learn to use this gift. Cultivate it, nourish it, honor it. You are not at the mercy of circumstances. You are a creator, an imaginer, a vessel through which heaven touches earth. When you know this, you no longer ask, "Will I be okay?" You begin to declare, "I already am." And that declaration, when felt deeply, becomes your reality. Let your imagination be holy. Let it be bold. Let it be drenched in love, in hope, in certainty. For what you imagine, in alignment with truth, the divine fulfills without fail. Faith is not the quiet hope that things might someday improve. It is not the passive waiting for signs, nor the timid whisper of maybe in the face of the impossible. True faith is a bold, fearless assumption. It is the unwavering decision to embody a reality not yet seen, and to walk in the conviction that what you have imagined is already yours. Those people misunderstand faith as something fragile, as if it were a delicate flower easily crushed by the weight of the world. But real faith is power, it is substance, it is the unseen cause behind all visible effect. You do not possess faith simply because you believe in the existence of God. You possess faith when you dare to act from the place of what you have seen within, before any sign has appeared to confirm it. The world will tell you to be realistic, to wait and see, to trust only what can be proven. But faith asks something different of you. Faith requires that you become the evidence of what you cannot yet touch. You do not wait for healing, you walk as though healed. You do not wait for peace, you carry the stillness within your chest. You do not wait for abundance, you live with the heart of someone already full. This is not denial, this is alignment with a deeper truth, a higher law. To seek God in hard times is to shift your identity, not just your desires. It is to say, I am no longer the one pleading for rescue. I am the one who has already been delivered. You may not see it with your physical eyes yet, but that means nothing. What is real begins in the unseen, and faith is how you bring it forth. This bold assumption is not arrogance, it is spiritual obedience. For the divine has already answered. The supply, the healing, the peace, all of it exists now. It is your task not to wait for it to appear, but to live from the end, to inhabit the outcome as if it were already so. That is what causes the invisible to take form. There is no power in repeating affirmations if they are not felt. There is no power in prayer if it is laced with doubt. But when you assume the state of being that matches your desire, when you embody the feeling of the wish fulfilled, then all things must rearrange to reflect that state. The world cannot help but mirror your inner world. That is the law. You must understand that faith is not hoping that God will come through. Faith is knowing that God already has. It is the inner declaration, it is done. You do not need to beg, to chase, or to explain. You simply need to persist in the assumption of your chosen reality until the world conforms, and it will. It always does. When fear comes knocking, and it will, you do not fight it. You return to your assumption. You quiet the noise by stepping back into the feeling of fulfillment. You say within yourself, I remember who I am. I remember what is true. And you go on living from the reality that no one else can yet see, but that you know as certain as breath. This is not about pretending. It is not about ignoring facts. It is about understanding that facts change, circumstances bend. The outer world is clay in the hands of inner conviction. You are not a victim of life. You are the author, and faith is the pen. So live boldly, assume boldly. Let your imagination paint the scene and let your heart dwell in it. Let your actions, your thoughts, your words all flow from that assumption. For that is how faith moves mountains. Not by waiting, not by hoping, but by becoming. You are not waiting for a miracle. You are the miracle, made visible by the boldness of your assumption. When the world shakes beneath your feet and the answers seem far away, you must not forget where the true power lies. It is not outside of you. It is not in the opinions of others or in the unfolding of events. It is within. The divine is not distant. It is present in your awareness, your imagination, and the stillness of your own heart. You do not find God by chasing signs. You discover God by assuming the nearness, by walking as one who is already held, already guided, already whole. This journey is not about begging for help. It is about remembering who you are. It is about aligning with the quiet knowing that you are never alone, never abandoned. Faith is not waiting, it is becoming. And as you imagine rightly, as you hold fast to peace and rise above fear, the unseen begins to take form. And what was once only a vision becomes your lived reality. So in your darkest moments, do not seek the light, be the light. Assume the feeling of the answered prayer. Rest in silence. Use your divine imagination. And remember, what you believe within, you shall see without. Thank you for listening. Stay faithful, stay grounded, and above all, trust the power that lives within you. You walk into a room, the energy shifts. Maybe someone throws a subtle jab. Maybe it's a rude comment online. Maybe it's that one person who knows exactly how to push your buttons and pushes them every time. And you feel it, that rise in your chest, the tight jaw, the instinct to clap back or shut down. But then you breathe. You decide. Not today, not this time. Because here's the truth. Acting like nothing bothers you doesn't mean nothing does. It means you've learned not to give everything access to your peace. There is a misconception that staying calm means you're weak, that not reacting means you don't care. Composure is not the absence of emotion, it's the presence of strength. It's saying, I see what's happening, and I choose not to let it control me. Think of a pilot in turbulence. The best one doesn't panic. They don't scream over the intercom, they adjust calmly, deliberately, because they know this. If I lose control, everyone loses. People will test you, life will challenge you, disrespect will knock on your door dressed as a harmless joke. That when you act unbothered, you reclaim your power. Because here's the secret no one tells you. Not everything deserves a reaction. Some things just want your energy, your attention, your spark. And if you hand it out carelessly, you end up empty. You're not ignoring it. You're outgrowing it. You're no longer available for drama. You become more invested in your peace than in proving a point. And let's talk about silence. Because silence isn't weakness. It's a strategy. So the next time life tests your patience or someone pokes at your peace, pause, not because you don't care, but because you've decided who you are, and no one else gets to rewrite that in a moment of madness. Act like nothing bothers you, not because you feel nothing, but because you've learned that not everything is worth feeling. That is strength. That is leadership. That is freedom. We live in a world where loudness often gets mistaken for strength, where reacting quickly is seen as confidence and silence is mistaken for weakness. But there's a quiet kind of power, the kind that doesn't yell, doesn't flinch, and doesn't need to prove anything. That's what composure really is. It's not about pretending nothing touches you. It's about choosing how you show up when things do. When you act unbothered, people often assume you're cold or detached. But that couldn't be further from the truth. You feel everything. You see the subtle disrespect. You hear the sarcasm laced in words. You notice the energy in the room shift when you walk in. But you don't let it dictate your behavior. That's not ignorance. That's discipline. It's the conscious decision to respond with clarity instead of reacting from emotion. But because reaction is easy, it's immediate, it feels good in the moment, to snap back, to defend, to prove a point. But often that reaction costs you more than it gives. You lose control, you hand over your energy. And for what? A few seconds of release followed by hours of regret? True power isn't found in the eruption. It's found in the restraint. Composure is a kind of inner leadership. It's the quiet message you send to yourself and to others. I am in control of me. And when you carry that energy, everything changes. People don't know what gets to you because nothing breaks your rhythm. They see that they can't shake you. And in a world full of chaos, that calm becomes magnetic. That's influence without force, power without pressure. But don't confuse composure with passivity. This isn't about staying silent forever. It's about choosing your moment, responding when you're ready, not when you're triggered. It's about keeping your dignity intact, even when everything around you tries to pull you out of character. Because let's be honest, the moment you lose your cool, someone else is in charge. And why would you give that kind of power away? Being unbothered isn't about denial, it's about discernment. It's knowing what deserves your energy and what doesn't. It's understanding that your time, your attention, and your peace are sacred. Not every battle is worth fighting. Not every insult deserves an answer. And sometimes silence is the most powerful response you can give, because it shows you've risen above what once pulled you down. At the end of the day, composure is about alignment. It's about being so grounded in who you are that nothing external can knock you off balance. It's not that you don't feel it, it's that you don't feed it. You recognize the moment for what it is, and you decide, I'm not going to give this the power to disrupt me. And that decision, that's where real strength lives. There's a split second between something happening and your response to it. A tiny space most people rush through without even noticing, but inside that space lives your greatest power. It's called the pause. And when you learn to master it, you no longer let the world dictate your reactions. You reclaim control, not just of your words or your actions, but of your direction, your presence, your influence. Most people are taught to respond quickly. We live in a fast-moving culture that celebrates instant replies and knee-jerk reactions. But fast isn't always effective. In fact, most of the damage done in relationships, leadership, and self-worth comes from reacting too quickly and thinking too late. The pause gives you the gift of clarity. It creates room to ask the right questions. What's really happening here? Is this about me, or is this about them? Is this a moment I need to respond to, or just observe? Pausing isn't hesitation, it's precision. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. When you pause, you step out of the emotional fog and into a space where you can actually see the situation clearly. You stop being emotionally driven and start being strategically grounded. And in a world where emotions run high and patience runs low, that's a rare and powerful skill. Think about the last time someone triggered you. Maybe they insulted you, challenged you, or dismissed you. The instant urge is to defend, to strike back, to show you won't tolerate it. But what if you paused instead? What if you didn't react at all in that moment? Suddenly, you're not just another person in the noise. You become the person who knows how to hold their ground without losing their center. That kind of presence doesn't just earn respect, it commands it. And the pause isn't just for others, it's for you. It's where your best decisions are made. It's where you separate what's true from what's temporary. The anger that surges in 1 second might vanish in the next. But if you act on that first feeling without pausing, the consequences might linger far longer than the moment deserved. Mastering the pause means mastering your narrative. You stop letting other people pull the strings of your behavior. You stop being a puppet to triggers and start becoming the author of your actions. That's not just emotional maturity, that's real power. Because anyone can shout, anyone can explode, but very few can stay still, process, and respond with intention. So the next time something stirs your emotions, remember the pause, not to suppress how you feel, but to honor it enough to respond with clarity instead of chaos. That pause might only last a few seconds, but what you choose inside it can shape everything that comes next. That's where control lives, not in dominance, not in noise, but in stillness, in the deliberate decision to be bigger than the moment. Energy is one of the most valuable resources you have, more than time, more than money. Because your energy shapes how you show up, how people experience you, and how you experience life. Every thought you entertain, every argument you engage in, every situation you obsess over, it all has a cost. And most people don't even realize they're spending themselves into emotional debt by reacting to everything that comes their way. We're taught to be on all the time, to defend ourselves, to have the last word, to correct every misunderstanding and prove every point. But if you really look closely, you'll see that the people who are most grounded, the ones who carry real influence, they're not the ones making the most noise. They're the ones who have learned to conserve their energy and use it with intention. They don't react to everything, not because they don't notice, but because they know what matters. The strongest person in the room is often the quietest. Not because they're afraid to speak, but because they know they don't have to. Their presence already says enough. Their restraint isn't a lack of power. It's proof that they've outgrown the need to prove anything. That's what intentional energy looks like. It's the decision to protect your peace over your pride. Imagine walking through your day with this mindset. My energy is currency. You would start asking yourself, is this conversation worth investing in? Is this drama worth draining me? Is this battle worth my attention, or is it just noise trying to distract me from my real purpose? That's the difference between living reactively and living intentionally. When you realize that not every insult deserves a clapback, not every post needs a comment, and not every challenge requires your engagement, you begin to reclaim power. You begin to own your energy instead of handing it out to anyone who pushes your buttons. This doesn't mean you become passive or detached. It means you choose where your energy goes because you understand how valuable it is. You understand that some things are beneath your attention, not because you're arrogant, but because you're aligned. You're not running on ego, you're operating from clarity. Intentional energy also looks like choosing rest over burnout, focus over distraction, peace over performance. It's knowing when to speak and when to stay silent, when to engage and when to walk away. Every decision either deposits into your energy or withdraws from it. The more aware you become of that, the more powerful you become. Not louder, but clearer. Not more reactive, but more rooted. So start treating your energy like a bank account. Don't spend it proving your worth to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Don't waste it fighting battles that don't build you. Invest it in people, places, and pursuits that bring you closer to the life you actually want to live. Because the way you spend your energy isn't just about what you do. It's a reflection of what you value. There's a big difference between ignoring something and choosing to rise above it. One comes from avoidance, the other from awareness. When people see you stay calm in the middle of chaos, when you don't engage in the gossip, the insults, or the petty games, they might assume you didn't notice. But you did. You saw it clearly. You just chose not to give it the power to knock you off course. That's not weakness, that's transcendence. Transcending something means you've elevated your perspective. It means you've moved from a reactive place to a reflective one. You're no longer dancing with the noise. You're watching it from a higher floor. You understand that engaging with certain people, certain problems, or certain situations only drags you down to a level that no longer serves you. This is one of the most misunderstood strengths. People will call you fake. They'll say you're avoiding confrontation. But what they don't see is the deep internal work it takes to respond with maturity, to choose silence when it would feel better to speak, to walk away when staying would only feed the fire. That's not detachment. It's discipline. You're not pretending it didn't happen. You're not blind to the disrespect, the challenge, the tension. You're fully present. That you've made a conscious decision. This doesn't get to decide who I am today. That's what it means to stay in alignment. It means you don't let someone else's chaos become your chaos. You don't let the energy in the room become the energy within you. Transcending drama is one of the highest forms of emotional intelligence. It's not about superiority, it's about stability. You're not looking down on others. You're simply not letting the moment pull you down with it. You've learned that engaging in every battle isn't noble. It's draining. And in that realization, you begin to understand the value of peace over performance. It's easy to think that standing up for yourself always means speaking out, defending, proving. That sometimes the strongest statement is in your silence, in your stillness, in your refusal to be moved by things that once consumed you. Because the real flex isn't reacting, it's evolving. It's choosing peace even when your ego is begging for a war. And here's the truth. Not every battle is meant to be fought. Some are meant to be outgrown. Some are meant to show you how much you've changed. That thing that would have rattled you 6 months ago, now it just gets a smile and a shrug. That's growth. That's transcendence. So no, you're not ignoring it. You're seeing it clearly and choosing not to give it a seat at your table. You've got better things to focus on, goals to reach, values to protect, peace to maintain. Let the noise make noise. You're not above it because you think you're better. You're above it because you built something more important within. A life that no longer bends to the smallness of drama. There are moments when saying something only makes it worse. When emotions are high and tensions are thicker than words can cut through. In those moments, silence isn't avoidance. It's strategy. It's wisdom. It's a statement louder than anything you could possibly say. Because sometimes the most powerful message you can send is no message at all. Silence doesn't mean you're powerless. In fact, it often means you're the one holding the most power. You've just chosen not to spend it proving something to people who aren't ready to hear you anyway. Words can be twisted, misunderstood, taken out of context. But your calm, that speaks for itself. It says, I've got nothing to prove here. I know who I am. We're conditioned to believe that speaking up is always the right move, that silence is surrender, that if we don't clap back, we've lost. But real strength doesn't need to be loud. Real confidence doesn't need to argue. It knows when a conversation is worth having and when it's just a trap disguised as dialogue. Sometimes engaging only validates the chaos. Sometimes the best way to win is to simply not play. And silence doesn't mean you're bottling it up either. It means you found a way to process without projecting, to feel without falling apart, to observe without reacting. That's not repression, that's emotional intelligence. It takes more self-restraint to stay quiet in the face of ignorance than it does to fire back with clever words. Because silence isn't about being passive, it's about being precise. You can tell a lot about someone by how they handle silence. Some people fill it with noise, just to feel important. Others are comfortable in it because they've learned to trust themselves. They've learned that not everything needs an explanation. That clarity doesn't always come from conversation. That sometimes your calm presence in the middle of someone else's storm is enough to shift the entire atmosphere. Life will test you. People will disappoint you. Situations will spiral beyond anything you planned. And in the middle of it all, you'll face the same choice over and over again. Will you let it define you? Or will you decide how you respond? Because while you can't control the world, you can always control your reaction to it. And that's where real power begins. Most of us grow up believing that peace comes from controlling the external, fixing every problem, managing every person, trying to bend the world to our will. But the truth is, that kind of control is an illusion. Things will go wrong, people will say things that sting, plans will fall through. The real question is, who do you become in the face of it? True power isn't about life going your way. It's about being so grounded in who you are that even when life doesn't cooperate, you don't fall apart. That doesn't mean you don't feel the frustration, the sadness, the disappointment. It means you feel it and still stay centered. You experience the storm, but you don't let it rewrite your identity. Because the world is unpredictable, but your response doesn't have to be. You get to choose how you show up. You get to decide whether a hard day becomes a bad attitude, whether someone's disrespect steals your joy, whether failure becomes your identity or just another chapter in your growth. That choice, that tiny, powerful choice, is where your freedom lives. This isn't about pretending nothing affects you. It's about becoming the kind of person who decides what's worth affecting you. It's the recognition that resilience isn't built through ease, but through challenge. Every time life tries to shake you and you stay anchored, you build a deeper kind of strength, one that isn't loud or flashy, but steady and unshakable. And this strength shows up in how you lead yourself. It's in how you carry yourself when no one is watching. It's in your ability to stay aligned with your values, even when pressure is high. It's in your refusal to let circumstances make you bitter or small. When you stop trying to control everything and start mastering your own presence, that's when you become truly powerful. You stop reacting to everything, you stop giving your peace away so easily, and you start responding with intention, grace, and clarity, even when chaos surrounds you. That's not easy. It takes practice, it takes patience. But the more you do it, the more you realize that nothing outside of you has to dictate what happens within you. So let the world spin. Let the noise be loud. Let the circumstances rise and I have learned that if I want to shift anything in my world, I must first shift myself, not with effort or strain, but with the quiet power of gratitude. Gratitude is not something I give only when things go well. It is the doorway. It is the beginning. It is the secret language of creation itself. I do not wait until the thing appears to feel thankful. That would be foolish. I feel grateful now, because to feel grateful now is to know it is already done. It is already mine. The moment I can feel the emotion of thank you in my heart before the facts confirm it, I am no longer a seeker. I am a possessor. I close my eyes and imagine the end fulfilled. I hear the words I long to hear. I see the scene as it would be were it true. That I do not stop there. I whisper within, thank you. Not with force, not with repetition, but with knowing. Gratitude becomes my home, my natural response to an unseen gift that I already accept as mine. I carry it throughout the day, not to get something, but because I already have it. My gratitude is not a plea. It is a celebration, a song of certainty. When doubt comes knocking, as it sometimes will, I do not argue with it. I return to the feeling. I return to the silence. I return to gratitude, that sacred inner place where all things are already complete. And as I dwell there, the world begins to shift, not by my effort, but by law. Everything I have ever received, every breakthrough, every answered desire, has arrived through this quiet inner thank you. Because when I live in gratitude, I no longer chase, I no longer strive. I remember, I already am what I desire. I already have it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Gratitude must never be reserved only for those moments when things appear to be going well. It must not be conditional, reactive, or dependent on outer evidence. True gratitude is not a fleeting emotion, but a permanent dwelling place of the soul. It is not something to be summoned when circumstances are ideal. It is the way we must learn to be, and especially when nothing yet appears to have changed. You see, most people misunderstand gratitude. They think it belongs only after the blessing, after the money arrives, after the healing is confirmed, after the person calls. But this is gratitude as the world teaches it, and that kind of gratitude holds no creative power. It is a shadow, a reflection, a reaction. But creation is not born in reaction. Creation is born in stillness, in faith, in knowing, in the invisible realm within. To dwell in gratitude is to move into the state of the wish fulfilled. It is to walk as if the very thing you desire has already made its home in your life. When I say gratitude must be a dwelling place, I mean that your inner world must become so saturated with the feeling of thank you that it becomes your atmosphere, your language, your breath. You wake in it, you walk in it, and you sleep in it. NBA specialize in gratitude. In the A, gratitude is the thing, not because you see the thing with your physical eyes, but because you have already accepted it in consciousness. This is the great key. Gratitude does not follow the manifestation. It precedes it. It is not the result of things going your way. It is the cause. Gratitude is the evidence of belief. When I feel truly grateful for something that has not yet shown up in my life, I am giving myself the clearest proof that I believe it already exists in some unseen dimension, and that I am simply aligning with it. So, and this is not blind hope, it is not pretending, it is deeper than that. It is the sacred agreement between you and the unseen that says, I trust you. I believe that what I have asked for I have already received. I may not see it yet, but I feel it. I may not touch it yet, but I know it's mine. Gratitude in this form is a declaration of possession, a silent yes to the fulfilled desire. I no longer wait for the outer world to give me a reason to feel thankful. I choose gratitude as my state of being, because I know the world is only a mirror, and a mirror reflects what is already happening within me. If I feel grateful now, the mirror will echo that feeling. The people, the events, the opportunities, they will come, not because I begged or chased, but because I align myself with the feeling of already having. This practice of inner gratitude is not always easy, especially when appearances seem to scream the opposite. But that is the test, not of the outer world, but of your inner conviction. Can you give thanks in the face of delay? Can you be grateful when it looks like nothing is moving? Because if you can, you will see the power unfold. Every time you return to the feeling of thank you, you return to power. Every time you whisper gratitude for what you cannot yet see, you are moving mountains in the unseen. You are choosing to live not by sight, but by inner knowing. You are saying, I no longer need evidence. Our gratitude, when it becomes your dwelling place, no longer asks when, it knows. It no longer wonders how, it trusts. It does not live in lack or hope or delay. It lives in the finished state. It breathes the air of completion. And from that place, everything else must rearrange to match the truth you have already accepted within. So live in gratitude, not as a response to life, but as the cause of it. And watch as the unseen becomes seen, the imagined becomes fact, and the whispered thank you becomes the thunder of manifestation. When you say thank you, you are not simply uttering words. You are declaring ownership. You are stating without hesitation that what you desire is already yours. Gratitude, when it is felt with authenticity and depth, carries with it a profound implication, that there is no gap between you and the thing desired. The world may tell you to be grateful after the thing has appeared, but true creative power lies in being grateful before it arrives, because in truth, it already has. This is not a trick of the mind. It is not a tactic to manipulate the universe. It is a shift in awareness, a knowing that what you have imagined exists now in a higher dimension of reality. And gratitude is your way of claiming it. You do not say thank you for something you do not believe you will receive. That would be hollow. That would be pretending. Oh, you say thank you because you have already received it. Because in your imagination, in your feeling, in your inner world, you already hold it in your hands. Gratitude, when rightly used, is not an emotional reaction. It is a spiritual confirmation. It is your soul saying it is done. You may not see it with your physical eyes. You may not have touched it with your hands. But in your consciousness, it is as real as the air you breathe. And because you know this, you give thanks. Not because you're begging or wishing, but because you know. To feel grateful is to speak the language of the fulfilled desire. You do not thank someone for a gift they haven't given you yet. You thank them when the gift has been placed in your hands. So why would you thank life, the divine, the unseen forces of creation for something you hope might come one day? You wouldn't unless you had already moved into possession within. Gratitude, therefore, is the signal to the world that you are no longer in the state of wanting. You have shifted into the state of having. This is the secret that transforms desire into manifestation. It is not effort, it is not action, it is not struggle. It is the quiet power of assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled. And when you do this, when you dwell in the state of already having, gratitude flows from you naturally. It is not forced. It is not mechanical. It becomes as effortless as breathing. You are not trying to make something happen. You are simply giving thanks. This is why those who live in true gratitude walk with a quiet confidence. They do not chase. They do not plead. They do not worry. They know that what they have claimed in consciousness must appear. For the outer world is only ever reflecting the inner state. And the inner state of gratitude is one of completion, not lack. It is the state of I have, not I hope. Whenever you feel doubt, return to gratitude, not as a technique, but as a truth. Whisper thank you, not to change your situation, but because deep within, you know your situation is already changing. You know that you have entered the state where your desire is not a future event, it is a present reality in another form. And that knowing is enough to give thanks. This is the way I live now. I no longer wait for the world to give me permission to feel blessed. I no longer let appearances dictate my emotions. I wake up with gratitude not because life has handed me everything I asked for in physical form, but because I already hold it in consciousness. I walk through the day giving thanks, not for what is coming, but for what already is. Because I have discovered the truth. When I feel grateful, I am no longer seeking, I am receiving. And from that moment on, all things must come to me. Imagination alone is powerful. Gratitude alone is divine. But when the two are wedded, when imagination and gratitude are fused into one living, breathing experience, you unlock the secret to effortless manifestation. Imagination creates the scene, the image, the experience. Gratitude charges it with life, with belief, with acceptance. One constructs the vision, the other claims it is already done. Together they bring the unseen into form. Most people imagine their desires with a sense of distance. They see what they want, but only as something to be obtained someday. Their imagination becomes a dream machine, not a birthing chamber. The key difference is this. When you feel gratitude during your imaginal acts, you are no longer a seeker. You become the one who has. You shift from desire to fulfillment. The act is no longer incomplete. It is finished. To imagine without gratitude is like drawing blueprints and never building the house. The structure may be beautiful in theory, but it lacks substance. Gratitude is the builder. It is the energy that constructs your inner vision into outer form. When you give thanks within the imaginal act, you are saying, I accept this as real. I accept this as mine. I accept this now. That feeling of deep, natural gratitude is the evidence that you have moved into the state of the wish fulfilled. To continue accepting is to accept that you have moved into the state of the wish fulfilled. Imagination allows you to see beyond appearances. Gratitude makes what you see real in your emotional body. And that is where the change begins, not in the physical world, but in your feeling. The feeling is the secret key that tells the subconscious, this is not a fantasy. This is truth. And what the subconscious accepts as truth, the outer world will eventually reflect. When you sit quietly and imagine your desire fulfilled, do not simply see it, feel it. Do not be a spectator, enter the scene. See through your own eyes. Touch what you would touch. Hear the words of congratulations, the sounds of success. But above all, feel thankful. Let your heart swell with appreciation, as if the thing you once longed for has already happened, and you are now living in the result. That thanksgiving is not make-believe. It is not a game. It is the highest form of prayer. There is a sacred silence in those moments when imagination and gratitude merge. Time dissolves, doubt disappears. You are no longer trying, you are simply being, and from that being, all things arise. You no longer wonder when it will happen or how. You simply rest in the knowing that it already has. That knowing is born out of gratitude. That assurance is anchored by feeling. I no longer imagine just to entertain a better future. I imagine to enter that future now. And I take gratitude with me. I let it fill the room, the atmosphere, the breath of every imagined moment. I let it wrap itself around every scene. Because I understand now, without gratitude, imagination is a hope. But with gratitude, imagination becomes a claim, a declaration, a possession. So when you imagine tonight, when you close your eyes and see the life you desire, do not open them again until you have felt the joy, the relief, the peace, the thank you that says, this is done. Hold that feeling, let it linger, let it soak into your being until you forget it was just imagination. Because the moment you feel that it is real within, it must become real without. Imagination shows you the world as it can be. Gratitude tells you it already is. And when the two are joined, the world must obey. You do not beg for blessings. You do not chase results. You go within, you see clearly, and you give thanks. And in that quiet union of vision and gratitude, you become the master of your reality. When you begin to live in the frequency of thankfulness, something astonishing happens. You stop noticing what's missing. You stop focusing on what's wrong. Your attention is no longer rooted in lack. And that subtle but profound shift allows life to pour itself into your world. You become a magnet for the things your heart once yearned for, not because you begged, not because you tried harder, but because you finally become available to receive. Gratitude makes you receptive, not passive but open. Open to miracles, to abundance, to ease. In the absence of gratitude, we resist, we block, we tense up, thinking we must control every outcome. But when you are grateful, truly grateful, you surrender, you trust, you breathe in the present moment as enough. And in that state, all that you once chased begins to find its way to you. You no longer live in the question of how, you live in the answer of yes. And this is the secret. You are not manifesting things, you are manifesting states. The outer objects are simply reflections of the inner atmosphere. So when your inner world is flooded with gratitude, your outer world must conform. It cannot remain the same. It must reflect the peace, the fullness, the joy you are now broadcasting. Life listens to how you feel far more than what you say. And gratitude is the clearest statement of faith you can make. So let it be more than a morning ritual. Let it be more than a list you write. Let it become your state of being. Wake up grateful not for what you see, but for what you know is on the way. Go to sleep giving thanks not for the world as it appears, but for the unseen world that is already shifting in your favor. Let your thankfulness become so natural that even the air you breathe feels like a blessing. You don't need to understand the mechanics. You don't need to control the process. Just stay aligned. Stay thankful. Stay inwardly rich. Gratitude aligns you not only with your desires, but with your true self. The version of you who already has, already is, already knows. And when you live in that version of yourself, life has no choice but to catch up. Persistent gratitude is more than a habit. It becomes your inner language, your unspoken dialogue with the unseen realm. Every thought you think, every silent whisper that runs through your mind is part of a greater conversation. Most people allow these inner conversations to be filled with doubt, fear, and rehearsed disappointment. But when gratitude is sustained, when it becomes your constant companion, it gently begins to rewrite every word spoken within. No longer do you question, will it happen? You begin to hear the answer before the question. It is done. This is not forced optimism. It is not pretending that everything is perfect. Persistent gratitude is a shift in identity. You are no longer the one who waits, you are the one who already received. And the mind, which is always listening to itself, takes note. The internal chatter starts to align. The stories you used to tell yourself about delay, rejection, and lack lose their grip. Gratitude changes the tone, the rhythm, the energy of your self-talk. It may feel unnatural. You may still catch yourself rehearsing the old fears, the same loops of what if it never happens. But if you gently return again and again to the feeling of gratitude, not for what you see, but for what you know, you begin to change the atmosphere within. You no longer resist your desire, you no longer fight for it. You live as though the answer has already been given. Gratitude becomes your response to the unseen promise. Every time you say thank you in silence, every time you whisper, I'm so grateful, this is mine, without any outer proof, you reinforce the truth within. You confirm to your subconscious that the desire has already materialized. The subconscious does not need evidence. It responds to feeling, it responds to repetition, and persistent gratitude plants the seed of fulfillment again and again until one day the inner becomes more real than the outer. When that day comes, the world rearranges itself to match. This is not about trying to convince yourself. It is about living in a state of such deep thankfulness that doubt no longer has a voice. You wake up thankful, not because your desire has arrived in form, but because you are already living with it in consciousness. You carry that feeling with you throughout the day. You answer fear with gratitude. You answer delay with certainty. And you answer confusion with calm thanksgiving. Your inner world becomes quiet, still, and full. It is in this quiet that creation takes place. Not in the noise, not in the mental effort, but in the silence filled with assurance. Gratitude speaks to the unseen like a lover's whisper. I know you are here. I know you are mine. Thank you. And in that sacred exchange, you become a participant in divine creation. You no longer beg, plead, or push. You receive. Even when nothing appears to be changing, even when the world seems unmoved, keep going. Keep thanking. Keep blessing. Keep holding the inner conversation that speaks as one who already has. This is the secret to enduring faith. Not effort, but surrender. Not proof, but trust. Not waiting, but receiving in consciousness. Gratitude is not merely an emotion, it is a declaration. It is the language of the fulfilled. It tells the unseen, you can rest now, I believe. It tells the subconscious, this is who I am. It tells the outer world, I am already whole. Let gratitude be the final word in your thoughts before sleep. Let it be the background music of your imagination. Let it soften your doubts and open your heart. Because when persistent gratitude becomes your inner conversation, your life begins to mirror that truth. Not someday, but now. Gratitude is not simply a nicety or a moral virtue. It is a spiritual weapon, a powerful tool that dissolves doubt the moment it is sincerely felt. You cannot be in a state of true gratitude and simultaneously be consumed by uncertainty. They do not live in the same space. Gratitude is the language of assurance, a quiet but unwavering declaration that says, I know it's already mine. It may not yet be in your hand, but it is already in your heart. And that, in the realm of creation, is enough. Doubt is the voice of separation. It is the internal echo that says, maybe not. What if it doesn't work out? Or, I'm not sure I'm worthy. But gratitude has no room for such noise. Gratitude arises from union. Union with your desire. Union with the unseen. Union with the infinite source. When you are thankful, not as a reaction, but as a state of being, you silence the inner conflict. You silence the how and the when, because you already live in the yes. This is why gratitude is not merely an after effect, it is a cause. It is a spiritual position, a deliberate shift into faith. And when you enter this state, even quietly and without fanfare, you become magnetic to your own destiny. Gratitude doesn't require shouting or striving. It carries within it a confidence so deep. It doesn't need to prove itself. It doesn't need to prove itself. It simply is. And in this isness, this present, settled joy, everything begins to change. Most people try to kill their doubt by fighting it, by reasoning with it, by chasing more evidence. But you do not kill darkness by analyzing it. You remove it by turning on the light. Gratitude is that light. It fills the space where fear once lived. It does not argue with the doubt, it simply replaces it. Like the rising sun, it doesn't push away the night, it makes it irrelevant. When you give thanks for what you have already received in consciousness, you affirm the reality, the unseen. You become a participant in creation, not a beggar outside its gates. You stand in the feeling of fulfillment, and doubt has no choice but to fade. Why? Because the mind cannot occupy two opposing states at once. You cannot believe and disbelieve in the same breath. So the one you feed, the one you dwell in, becomes your truth, and gratitude feeds belief. Gratitude also softens the heart. It takes you out of mental effort and into emotional certainty. It invites you to rest, not because the journey is over, but because you've already arrived internally. And once you've arrived within, the outer world will follow. It always does. It must. The law is unbreakable. As within, so without. This is why you must train yourself to return to gratitude, especially when doubt begins to whisper again. You must learn to interrupt the pattern, not with resistance, but with thankfulness. Even a quiet thank you, said in the middle of fear, is enough to begin the shift. Even a soft breath of appreciation for what's to come realigns you with the truth of your being. You may not see results instantly, but you will feel the peace. And that peace is the signal, the sign that you have returned to the center of power. From that center, all things are possible. From that center, all things are already done. Gratitude is the evidence of faith. It is the proof that you believe even before you see. And this kind of belief, the one that rejoices without condition, is the belief that transforms reality. Not with force, but with ease. Not with anxiety, but with quiet joy. Gratitude is certainty wearing a smile. It doesn't need to shout. It simply says, thank you, and means it. And gratitude becomes your dwelling place, not just your reaction. Everything changes. You no longer wait for signs, you become the sign. You no longer ask if it will happen, you know it already has. Gratitude is the invisible bridge between where you are and where you desire to be. It aligns you, transforms you, and carries you into the reality you've already imagined. It is not a trick. It is truth in motion. When you feel thankful before anything shows up, you call it forth, you harmonize with it. You embody it. So live in gratitude, not as a performance, but as a posture. Let it color your thoughts, your imaginations, your conversations with yourself. Replace the waiting with receiving. Replace the doubt with silent knowing. Gratitude does not chase, it attracts. It confirms to the unseen that you are ready, and that you already are. Thank you for walking with me through this truth. Thank you for believing with me that the unseen is more real than what we see. Stay in gratitude and watch the world bow to your inner conviction.